Hello crafty friends, welcome to today's foiling video. In last Saturday's video we looked at 14 ways to add foil using your die cutting machine. Today we're going to focus on adding foil using stamps. So I've cut lots of tags out of smooth white cardstock to get us going, and I've chosen two stamps to use. I've got a fairly solid stamp and a stamp with some scripty writing and some little hearts on. And that should hopefully show how well these techniques work for the different types of stamped image for fine lines and solid shapes. So I've got a tag in here, I've positioned my stamps where I want them, put my tag back down there, and I'm dusting it with talcum powder. This will remove any moisture, static or grease from the paper. And I shall ink up my stamps with embossing ink. This is Wow embossing ink. I do also like the Versamark embossing ink. So I'm just pressing this down with my pressing tool to hopefully get a good impression. Might give the solid stamp a bit of a rub on the back as well. And I'm going to sprinkle over some Wow bonding powder. This is a sort of heat embossing powder, but it turns into a glue which you can use to stick down your foil. So that looks like it's stuck really well. We'll just leave that aside for a moment. And what I want to do with this is get everything ready to go. Once I've melted this, I'm going to need to put this foil down quite quickly. I'm going to pop it in this card sleeve, just a bit of scrap card. Then I'm going to pop it in this embossing folder, not embossing folder, cutting plate, and run it through my die cutting machine to apply some really good pressure to it. I'm going to peel this back off now, and hopefully we'll have had some foil transfer. And we have. I'll just give it a buff with a gentle sponge. And there's been a little bit of extra foil transfer around it, but the actual foiling is really good. To remove any speckles of foil where you don't want it, you can use an eraser. This is just a vinyl eraser, but you could use a sand eraser if there were some stubborn ones. With a vinyl eraser, I think it's okay to go over your actual image as well. It won't take the foil off. A sand eraser probably would. But there you go. Very good results with that, I think. I have tried the Ranger sticky embossing powder. It's supposed to work along the same lines, but I found much better results with the Wow powder. While I've got my embossing equipment out, I'm going to do some heat embossing with polished gold embossing powder. So that's turned out lovely, very nicely stamped and embossed. And it's a similar finish. This is a different tone of gold to this one, but similarly foiled. And again, I'm going to stamp with sticky embossing ink on this tag. And I'm going to dip this in clear embossing powder. So this is just regular old clear embossing powder. I can set that to one side, because what I need to do now is dust off my laminator and turn it on, get it all nicely warmed up. I'm going to put it on its highest heat setting. While that's heating up, I'll put a bit of foil over the top of my stamping and sandwich it in this bit of baking parchment. So that's gone through the laminator now. I'm just going to let that cool before I pull the foil off. And what that should have done is it should have remelted the embossing powder, and then as it cools, the embossing powder will stick to the foil. Well, what I found with this particular technique is you get a blurring of the image because When you run this through the laminator, the rollers push down on the melted embossing powder and spread it out a bit. So as you can see here, there's some of the detail has been lost in the writing and the lines are a lot thicker. If I compare it to the bonding powder, you can see how this has splurged and this hasn't. So I think the bonding powder is a superior way of doing it to using clear embossing powder. It might just be the particular embossing powder that I'm using. You might find that your clear embossing powder gives you a clearer, cleaner image. But it's a technique that's definitely worth trying, and it might work particularly well with, say, more solid images where you're not so worried about detail. It might be great for sort of mixed media. For this technique, I have stamped in embossing ink again, exactly the same as I did before. And now I've got some pigment powder that contains mica. This is Indigo Blue Luscious Pigment Powder in gold. And I can sprinkle this over my stamped image. And the stamped image will grab on to the pigment powder. So I can tap off the excess, brush off the excess with my fan brush, and I can put the excess back in the jar. And you can even just gently brush off any extraneous powder with a microfiber cloth. Don't rub too hard over the stamped image though, but if you do, you can always add a little bit more powder. So you can do that with mica powders or pigment powders that have mica in them for the glossy look. To fix that in place, if you've got a pigment powder with a binder already in it, like the Luscious powders, all you need to do is take some water, mist the air, and waft it through. You don't need to spray directly on it. You just need to give it a little bit of moisture to activate the binders and get everything to stick where you want it. So it shouldn't rub off. And you get a very pretty glossy gold image. And it's perfectly stamped and it's completely flush with the cardstock. It's not raised at all. So now we're going to try using some actual gold ink. This is Catherine Pooler Champagne Gold. I've taped my tag down so that it doesn't shift because I may very well need to do repeat stamping with this. So I've done 3 impressions already, and I'm not getting a great stamped image. I mean, it looks, the detail is fine, but I'm not getting much colour transfer. And at the moment, from this angle, all I can see is brown. I can see gold on the stamps themselves. So I'm going to give this a few more goes. There might be a knack to this that I'm unaware of. This is an almost brand new ink pad, so it's not like it needs re-inking. But I've done about 7 or 8 stampings just to get this. And it looks brown and has an ever such a slight shimmer in it. You may have better metallic inks than I have, or you may have a better technique with your metallic inks than I have, but it definitely works. And you can get a very detailed impression. It's just not something that I would use if I wanted a foiled look. For this technique, I'm going to use Flitterglue, which is indigo blue, non-toxic, water-based, non-flammable, tacky glue, basically. It says, start by using a palette knife to work in about 1 teaspoon of Flitterglue into the white side of the fat foam. This is the foam that was provided. There isn't a white side. I'm guessing it's the spongy side. So I'll pop some on there and I'll work it in with a palette knife. I might need to add some more. I just got their starter kit for this because I thought I'll try it out, and if it's any good, I'll invest in a big bottle. Okay, I think that'll do for now. Ink up your stamp with the Flitterglue in a dabbing motion and stamp onto your card. You don't have to press hard or for long when stamping, as the Flitterglue easily grabs the card. Just kiss the stamp literally on and off. So I'm going to dab that on and then kiss the stamp on and off. Okay, that looks like we've got a stamped impression there. Next we need to sprinkle the gilding flakes over the stamped image. And then place it on the desk and rub over the image with the palm of your hand. Polish your image with the grey scoochy sponge in your kit. This is the scoochy sponge. I'm going to use this soft sponge as well. And there you go. That's a big thumbs up for Flitterglue. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I do like the look you get with gilding flakes. Let me just buff over that a bit. Yeah, I like that. Now the instructions do say to wash your stamp immediately, because obviously you don't want the glue drying on it. But I'm going to try this again, but with the foil, and see if it works with that. I will give these a really good going over with a baby wipe. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. It looks like it's sticking, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine just to apply as much pressure as possible. And then we'll peel this off and see what it looks like. The solid stamp is looking good. Oh, look at that. That is very, very nice. So we've successfully foiled a stamped image using that Flitterglue. Oh, I'm in love with that. So it's as clean as the Wow Polish Gold and the Wow Bonding Powder with the foil, but it is totally flush with the card. It's not raised at all. Very pleased with that. Definitely going to buy some more of that Flitterglue. Having said that, I do have some other tacky glues that may well work just as well. I've got Spectrum Noir Versatile Adhesive Liquid Glue, which remains tacky. Deco Foil Liquid Adhesive Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo. Try saying that fast. And I've got a Deco Foil Adhesive Pen. So off camera, I'm going to do exactly the same process as I did with the Flitterglue. I'll find some other sponge to sponge it on with, just some sponge daubers. And then I'll take some photographs and show you the results. So you might not need Flitterglue. Try it with whatever tacky glue you've got in your stash. Now, another technique I've come across is a bit odd, but I'm going to give it a go. And that is to take some Nuvo drops with a gloss finish. So I've got some white Nuvo drops here. Pick them up with a sponge and then dab it onto your stamp. And then stamp it on your card. So I have got a good stamped image there. And then put some foil over it and run it through a laminator. Right, I can see some foil is stuck. I'm just going to let this cool down and see what it looks like. So it's definitely a distressed look, a bit grungy. It's not come out perfectly. The solid seems more successful, but it's definitely something that I think is worth playing around with, especially if you do want to get some kind of grungy foiled look with your stamps. Right, while we're doing sponging, I thought I'd try sponging on some gold acrylic paint. That seems to be working. I think the trick is not to overload your sponge. It's better to do multiple light impressions than one big heavy splurgy impression. With all of these mediums, definitely clean your stamps as soon as possible. And you can always put these sponges in water and wash them out. I'm just going to give this a dry to see how shiny it gets. I think that's come out surprisingly well. It is a little bit shiny. It's not as glossy as the foil, but I think I get a better impression with that than I do with the Catherine Pooler ink. I wonder if getting a re-inker for this ink and sponging it on rather than using the foam pad of the ink pad might have an effect. Might be worth a try. Right, there you go. That is a bunch of ways to get a foiled stamped image or a foiled shiny metallic looking stamped image. I've just looked at these deco foil glues and they need to be left to dry for a couple of hours before you do any foiling on top of them. So I'm not going to bother with that today. We'll look at these in the next video, which is going to be about a little bit more than foiling. It's about adding bling to your cards, adding metallic accents. So if you're interested in the foiling with your die cutting machine video, do check that out. I'll leave a link in this video's description. And if you've enjoyed today's video, do let me know in the comments and leave a thumbs up, especially if you've got other ways of adding foiling using your stamps. And if you want to see next week's metallic accents video, do subscribe and ring the notification bell so you're notified when that video airs, but it will be next Saturday. Right, I hope you've enjoyed today's video and it's given you some ideas, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.